Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Welcome to the weekend astrology report for the weekend of February 18th through the 20th, 2022. So welcome back, everyone. Welcome if you're new to this channel. Sorry, I just realized that I didn't change settings that I needed to change for recording versus streaming. So it's fine, though. It's not a big deal. I'm going to move on from it. So how is everyone doing? It is Friday morning here on the East Coast of the US, and it's been yesterday was really warm. It rained. I mean, we have all of this ice and snow that's still just covering everything and making life just that much more interesting. But it rained and a lot of snow melted, and the creek outside of my front door on my property is really rushing today. But then I started to see like snowflakes, but they weren't snowflakes. Has anybody else seen this? And then I'll get into the specifics of today's broadcast. But it looks like snow, but they're these little pellets. It's not snow. It's too perfectly formed, right? These tiny little pellets that come down that look like snow. I'm just curious if anybody else has noticed this, if they know for a fact that it's a certain type of precipitation. I've really never seen it before, and it makes me wonder, especially because of the not so low flying planes that seem to just streak across the clear blue sky whenever we have one. So I'm just curious if anybody's noticed that. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend, my friends. So I want to check in with the stream and make sure it's rolling, it's going well. All right, guys. It's not hail. It's definitely, I mean, it could be like hail, but it's got a texture to it. They're tiny. They're tiny little pearls or tiny little, it's like Dippin' Dots. It's definitely not hail. It seems weird to me. Anyway, I'm just curious. And I'm sure you guys get hail a lot in the area that you're in. Hi, Megan. It's good to see you. Man, I felt like there was something I needed to tell you or share with you. Oh, there is. I have content that I want to share with you. If you tap me later on Telegram or something or email to remind me I have something I want to send you. So, all right, guys, here is the weekend's astrology. So the forecasts are up, and if you haven't checked it out already, you can do so at any point. And so I did go over a little bit of the weekend in those forecasts, more so with Libra and Aries, because the moon's going to be in Libra through the weekend, and man, it's going to be very interesting. And I'm going to share with you a little bit of my personal barometer in life, which is the cats, and what they've been up to, and my own strange occurrences, because I think that we're going to really, since this full moon, and surely if you've listened to your signs forecast, you already know that it's going to be by next Wednesday, that with the third quarter moon in particular, that's really going to challenge our experience that we've had with the full moon of like, can I hold this, right? Is my heart able to handle the intensity and the sheer volume of spiritual energy, of transcendent thoughts, right? That the spiritual energy that moves through us, which is the open heart of Leo, we really got a sense of what that's going to feel like. And maybe there's been some more, a little bit more that is starting to come out, especially now that the moon's been in Virgo. So we'll go over all the astrology and kind of look at each thread a little bit more closely to see, why this mosaic or this picture is getting weaved together. But one thing I will say is that when the sun comes into Pisces, we're going to see a lot of people giving up. And I hate to be so morose about this, but I will share with you, how my morning started, so that you can see where maybe I have my own projection onto the read. That's always a possibility. Astrologers are just human beings, and there's kind of no way around that. But also, too, with the sun in Pisces, I mean, this is where we start identifying ourselves with the spiritual and emotional cohesion of everything, and we have to take it all. And it's surrender, like the Hanged Man, but it's also martyrdom. It's also giving up. It's also giving in to your addictions, giving in to illusion, giving in to psychosis, right? The other side of this is true spiritual vision. Giving up is turned into service, right? Surrender to the will of divine source or God. So there's a lot of ways this can go, and it's going to be different. But what I will say, and we've talked about this already, how it's building, and not everybody's going to be addressing these very strong conflicting energies in the same way. And you may find that people close to you, or people that you had different opinions about, that you looked at in a certain way, you may find that they also are potentially giving up. Maybe it comes to pass that you realize that what has been the motivation for somebody's actions this whole time is actually not what you thought, right? Or people can get broadsided emotionally. I feel like it's going to be a very difficult weekend. And our job as starseeds, as people who are consciously embodying their astrological blueprint, embodying their, the full range of their DNA blueprint from an energetic perspective, and knowing that we came here for this time to be part of, what cohesiveness we can come up with as everything else unravels, right? Is to keep it together, right? And to know the difference between ourselves and what other people are experiencing, either in our lives, at a social level. And it'll be very challenging, I think, with the moon in Libra, that the urge and a draw to adapt to the circumstances around all of us is to transfigure our own emotional state or our own feelings in order to reach that perfect form of relationship. And so it's helpful to understand what areas of your chart the moon in Libra in particular is going to be impacting, and you can get that from your forecast as I go through the weekend. But we are also being initiated into something, and that's really where I want to start. So first I want to share with you, this was the fourth night in the row that has, and I moved over to the chat, and I can already tell that people are talking about dreaming and their sleep. So I'm not going to look at it right now, and I'm going to come over to it, but it's the same thing. So this is the fourth night in a row that I've woke up at 3 a.m. on the dot, just waking up. And at that time, Malcolm, Malcolm is my female cat, and Angus and Malcolm are siblings. So let's see if you'll be able to see this. There she is. This was this morning on my mat in my prayer meditation space, that she hardly ever does this, comes into my office like this. But what else she did at 3 a.m. is that she came into the bed, which she hardly ever does either, at least not in the middle of the night, and started doing the cha-cha. So if you have cats, the cha-cha, the pushy paws, right? They do that in order to stimulate probably some sort of nervous system, triggering their sympathetic nervous system. It's comforting to them. It's what they do as kittens to stimulate, milk production when they're nursing. And so they continue to do this as a means to comfort themselves and to initiate that type of, there's probably some sort of hormonal release, oxytocin or some sort of bonding thing, right? So she does that a lot when she's feeling cuddly and snuggly. So 3 a.m., she's in there just going to town between the two of us. And so we were petting her and giggling about it and just that's really cute. But I had just woken up for the fourth night in a row at 3 a.m. And I was like, what's going on? Something's going on. Something that they are very sensitive to is happening. And she was initiating comfort for herself and bonding hormones at this time. So that was my first okay, this has been a pattern, but now it's reaching a crescendo. And so maybe an hour or two later, I went back to sleep. And then an hour or two later, it must have been after Seth had got up. He gets up very early for his job. And I woke myself up crying. And I haven't had a nightmare this used to happen a lot. It was very frequent at a different time in my life. And a lot of that stuff has finally been, I've gone through a lot of deep healing and resolution of things that have allowed those experiences to pretty much, for the most part, dissipate entirely. But I woke myself up crying about 4:30, 5 a.m. And it was about that people close to me just giving up, and having no real initiative or even awareness of what they could be doing in that moment, or how they can take initiative for their own empowerment. And I was so sad that I woke myself up sobbing, because they were people close to me. So it's put a very interesting spin on today in general, and also just with the astrology and knowing what the weekend may hold. It's people are going to start giving up and giving in to their addictions, like I said, psychosis, fantasy, escapism, but also giving in to, you might see a lot of people finally reaching their precipice, right? And that's when you surrender as like the hanged man and give yourself over consciously and intentionally to the flow, right? You surrender to it. So, but it was a tapping in with the moon and Virgo in particular that seemed to bring up a lot of the lack of boundary emotionally in those situations, because I think that's going to be an important theme to consider, right? Is that we will, the thing about Virgo is that it is the inner alchemy that we are practicing, but there is still a very, a sense of boundary there, so that there is some sort of dialectic or some sort of opposition that we are working with, right, with Virgo. But it does imply that there is some measure of distinction and boundary, whereas Pisces there is not. And maybe the boundaries are... well, they are what they are. So, but I do also feel like that we're going through a very strong spiritual initiation at the same time. So we'll look at that in the chart as well. So that's my story for today. Now I'm going to check in with the chat here. Had not been dreaming much, but the full moon brought on vivid dreams again. Been waking at 3 for a couple days too. There you are. See, 3 a.m. wake ups lately. We're all doing it. It's been overwhelming the past few days, but not in a way I can't handle, just requiring more self-care. Boom. Emily, you got it. You got it. That's definitely where I've gotten to as well. It's like time to start. And, if you haven't already incorporated your self-care routines, this is the time to do it with the moon and Virgo. It's making it really obvious. I've had that wake up around 4 p.m. the last few nights too. Relationships like a pimple are ready to pop. I tried apology and forgiveness, but feeling it will get even more gnarly before it's over. Ugh. Barb, I'm so sorry. Because I feel like that's that is something that I feel like is going to happen in general too, that there's your moon in Leo or Libra, right? This desire and a draw, and almost like a need to adapt to the situation, to just find just to find that peaceful balance, and clear boundaries and strengthening the heart core seems essential. I totally agree, especially because it'll be really easy over the weekend to just kind of give in and be like, well, I can arrange myself emotionally and in my feeling landscape to make sure that the entire relationship or social organism is in a balance. So definitely relationships are getting gnarly, and it's a good word for it, and very clear and precise communication is necessary in all relationships lately. I totally agree with that too. Like, there's no room right now for anything to be not clear, like really clear, right? So that everybody knows what page everybody else is on. And you also know, and I'm going to get to this is a really important part of this weekend, but to build up to it, you also have to be aware that when there is a problem in that form of relationship, whatever it is, and it can't be transfigured and restructured in some way. There has to be some sort of mechanism to take those elements out of the situation in order to find some balance. And it's going to be gnarly. And we'll see what that is. And there's kind of no getting around it. But if we are aware of it going into the weekend, I think that it will really assist in keeping ourselves emotionally in our own bounds. Like Barb was saying, strengthening the boundaries and heart core, right? There's that Pleiadian revival. Like, we can't forget about this. We're still in this place where the North Node, and there's a beautiful Earth trine this weekend too with it's today with the Virgo moon, Pluto, and then the North Node, and it actually forms a kite. So we'll look at that too. I've had 2 people giving up on their empowerment in a certain area of their life. My reaching out seems on a different frequency, leading to misunderstanding. Man, Barb, I'll tell you what, that has been a big part of one of my big challenges right now. And I'm in a position where I can channel a lot of what I want to share and reach out into this platform. So I feel very grateful for that, because what I have found is that it really is falling on a lot of deaf ears in terms of actually consciously integrating the information and holding it in a way that's directing or orienting your everyday decisions, right? Like, instead of being like, no, I don't want to think about that, or no, I don't want to consider that, or that's not possible for that to be the case. But this is where people are going to be swallowed, right? I mean, shallow minds get lost at sea, and I would say even, detached souls, maybe not fully detached, but on their way. I mean, this is a time, it's a doorway that opens. So, man, some really thoughtful, very insightful comments in the chat right now. I really appreciate all of you participating and being so in tune with your process, even when it's difficult. So, all right, let's get into the astrology for today, and this weekend in particular. So I've made all of the announcements that I think I need to make on the forecast videos. So let's see here. And there'll be new reading offers coming soon, and we got the equinox coming, so that's a whole new ball of wax for all of us, right? Springtime is just going to be, and the new moon. Whew. New moon. The tone is about to change into very experiential in the next couple of weeks as well. So let's go into look at the chart. Let's look at Malcolm one more time. Look how sweet she is. She really is my polite miss. She is so polite. She's so loving. She is so, her boundaries are great. To the point where she, when we first brought her home, she hid behind the wood stove in the fireplace for days. She wouldn't come out. And now I can't even imagine her doing that. Angus is definitely, a lot spunkier, a lot more of a pain in the ass, right? His boundaries are not very good, and he gets sick a lot more often. They both have FIV, but she doesn't seem to really get sick at all, right? But he does. But his boundaries are a lot more loose and carefree, and he's a lot more brave, and a lot more willing to take risks, right? But he also, like I said, he gets sick a lot more often, and he's always getting in trouble, right? He'll steal food off your plate. He will bat at you for no reason. Malcolm would never do any of those things. I mean, she's just too polite. So when she was looking for comfort and bonding at 3 a.m., and he was too. He was definitely also in the bed with us. I knew that something, because she's really self-resources a lot. It's just the way she is. So I knew that something was going on when she, came at that time. And we're all waking up, right? That is the witching hour. There's something about our brains that change during that time that is pretty measurable. And it's now consistent. So, and I'm sure you could probably start to hear that from other people if you start spreading out your awareness into different starseed communities. Okay, Malcolm, you look so sweet. So let's look at let's look at the chart for today. All right, friends. So this is the 18th of February. So our moon is in Virgo, which I really do love, but it's incredibly intense right now. And part of that, or maybe a lot of that, has been the fact that Jupiter in Pisces, right? Good old Jupiter. We're really being put through the ringer of qualification into this spiritual secret society. Ooh, don't say it. The mystery school practices, I don't think intentionally. I mean, it changes every week when I think about it because you just keep learning and growing and evolving. But I don't think, because of how consistent a lot of these practices are cross-culturally, learning about shamanism and practicing a lot of the same techniques in my own practice, it goes across the board. These types of practices, these mystery school teachings, the accessing of our divine blueprint to be in harmony with the world consciously and with intent, right? That's different than any other being that we live with on this planet so far. Doesn't mean they're not sentient. Doesn't mean that they aren't, that we're better or anything else, but we are stewards, and we are very much being, at least we're getting represented, right? This is the conductor in some ways. Jupiter plays that role, but this is a qualification, and you can see that it's been in since I think maybe Tuesday, or I think it was Wednesday actually. It's been in this sextile to Uranus, and this is going to be the back end of a YOD with the moon, as we're going to see, and it's still very active. So a sextile, as we know, is the descending of spirit and the ascension of the material, right? It's the Star of David. It's the Solomon's seal, right? It is the practice of the inner alchemy by putting it's the work of the sixth house in Virgo. So it's appropriate that we have our moon in Virgo right now. So if we were to go back to much earlier this morning and yesterday even, actually, if we're really gonna look at this, let's see here. Well, hold on. We'll get there. Never mind. Never mind. I'll stay on the path that I was on. So if we... Okay. Sorry, guys. I just got totally sidetracked in my own mind. Okay, here we go. So Uranus is not out of its post-retrograde shadow. We still have a little while to go. I can confirm exactly what that is at some point. But what we see here with this sextile is, like I said, the practice of alchemy, right? The actual inner alchemy, where we are working with the elements that we want to bring together and eventually create something new. So the sextile is that first, like, oh, okay, you come out of like the pit, basically, and you're like, oh, okay, I have to actually give myself or give something to this process, but it is harmonious and it's going to activate something. So now that Jupiter and Uranus are in this sextile, I mean, there has been swift change or activation in some way. And there is, this might be an unstable position for Uranus, but there has been something about the process of window shopping reality that we've done already, right? We've been here. It's gone retrograde back over this point and is now coming back. So this has been a process that the collective has been working with for months and months now, in terms of the thinking outside of the box, thinking about the future, thinking about innovation, having swift, radical change in things like your assets, your physical reality, right? That's anything of value is what Taurus is about. And as far as the actual landscape itself, earthquakes and all kinds of other rapid, and I would say earthquakes that are connected in particular to the geoelectric circuit, which, you can learn about through a number of different sources. But there is esoterically and internally, at a consciousness level, we are working with these shifting realities, and we're window shopping. And what do you do when you window shop? You're not making decisions. You are looking at what's out there, right? And what better way to do that than to never really settle on any any one thing through Uranus, right? And it's really about, the glitching of the matrix or the glitching of reality, right? We are presented with infinite options that we've been window shopping, and it's been a little bit unstable. Perhaps it has allowed our minds to access areas that we normally wouldn't with Uranus, right? We're thinking at a much higher frequency and tapping into the third eye almost, directly here. So this sextile has been an interesting experience the last couple of days and is going to be part of the conversation leading into the new moon, as you may have already discovered if you watched your full moon forecast. So we do want to pay attention to it and what's going on with the moon, which will have this YOD over the weekend, right? Here it is right here, a finger of God, where you have two quincunxes, and you have Chiron shooting right down the middle in an opposition. Ouch. There's a lot of unsteadiness in all of this, a lot of things that don't fit, but boy, this is a very powerful moment. So we'll get there. Let's unpack this a little bit more, because we didn't get a chance to really talk about it because I didn't broadcast Wednesday or Thursday. So this, perhaps it has been this instability, this shifting landscape, this shifting of what is valuable to us and what we want, right? As a collective, right? Uranus isn't a personal planet. It's about larger cycles and cohorts of people. So this is representing the collective's third eye and our understanding of ourselves as a whole. Maybe, perhaps, it is the shifting landscape and the recognition that that there is infinite possibilities in this situation, that in fact is part of our initiation process, right? Is part of our expansion into this spiritual trajectory or spiritual mystery school, right? I don't think that the mystery school traditions have always been as a means to control people. I think that has been co-opted, right? And so the reason they've been kept secret or not given to the general person for a long time, and this, again, it's cross-cultural. Not everybody in the village is a shaman, because there's a very specific type of frequency that has to be held, and a specific type of person that has access to this realm without losing their minds, basically. And you have to go through a process of testing that. And Jupiter is totally expanding on this, giving us the resources, it's representing us. And so, but it depends also on what brotherhood you are attempting to find qualification or a partnership in, or membership. That's the word I'm looking for. So I think that what we may have found is, an acceleration of this process by way of something that seems so, we aren't really, the ability to handle the fact that it's not the possibilities, they're infinite. There are infinite possibilities of what has value to us. It's going to be a matter of what we eventually align with, what we resonate with, right? You're not manifesting because you're making something happen. You're manifesting because you resonate with the same frequency that is going to create that material thing. But I really do feel like that it's been the instability of this and the constant reminder that we have infinite possibilities that's actually been training us, or actually has been putting us through our initiation process, or hazing, if you want to think about it that way. That's been very, very difficult. But don't you see how much we have actually expanded as a result of the last 2 years having this be completely just throwing us off constantly. So again, this is where the giving up and the sun coming, really the sun coming into Pisces is a big part of it. Because once you start identifying yourself with Pisces and the 12th house, this is always a hard time of year for people, no matter what. And I think that it's just going to be that much stronger depending on where you find yourself personally, which is the moon. The moon represents how we all feel inside, and it changes and it grows and contracts at a much faster rate so that we have access to that cycle on a regular basis, right? So that we can feel what it's like to have more rapid personal circles and cycles, and then larger communal cycles, larger planetary cycles, all of that. So with the moon in Virgo, yesterday it was in a direct opposition to Jupiter, right? And so right away, and in a trine to Uranus. So this, the trained intuitive channel, right? The trained mind, but more than the mind, the trained mind in terms of our psychic ability, our intuition, our emotional boundaries, and the ability to be very penetrating, to very swiftly pull the veil back and be able to exist in both of those places at once, right? That was the opposition to Jupiter, where our feelings want to find some discipline, whereas Jupiter's like, here, just giving you everything about this situation, the spiritual situation, or your karma, or your imagination, or your fantasy, or the propaganda that you are giving yourself over to. You may give yourself over to. It's going to, the sun in Pisces is going to be, a lot of people are going to give up. They're going to give up. They're going to give in. And a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are going to give themselves over to God. And that's just as powerful. But it's this trained mind and this trained emotional body, and this, I think the trained emotional body being in a trine to Uranus at this point, again, is that this was very grounding, because we could, within ourselves, hold the stability or hold the emotional, trained perspective, while again this is constantly moving. There's no stability to the value of the world around us. There's no stability to our assets. There's no stability to the physical nature of reality, and the fertile soil in which to grow. It's made it really, really difficult to actually even be willing to plant actual roots, make long-term plans. It's been almost impossible. But I think that there's something in that space that is becoming way more obvious now, that the disruption and all the things that we've gone through, definitely in the last 2 years, but even longer, it had to be this way. It had to be this way so that we would get to this point and realize that it's all been part of some sort of initiation process. So, and it's the moon in Virgo that we all personally are kind of, sinking back into a sense of okay, I at least need to know my boundaries, even if I'm willing to work with them, with other people. It's so right away. And then the moon is having all of this relationship with these three, right? Jupiter, Chiron, and Uranus in different ways, depending on where she is. And so coming into the weekend, it's a different story than where she'll be for the weekend. So right now, as we're looking at today, which is the 18th, this is at noon, there's a couple things that I want to show you first. On this, let me make sure you guys can see this. Yes. So this is today as well. This is 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard. So that was what? That was about an hour or so ago. What we see here is a T-square, right? You have the moon in Virgo opposite Neptune, and black moon Lilith is the point of the T-square. So, okay. So now that Neptune is at 22 to 23 degrees, just came into this position today. Now that this is here, it's gone from receiving receiving the tablets, so to speak. Let's just use that imagery. You receiving the law, bringing it down from the mountain, and learning how to apply it to your everyday life, right? That's where Neptune has been sitting. Now we're in a position at 22 to 23 degrees where it has a lot more to do with giving all of our vital energies to that end whatever it is, right? It's like, it's like a person who's a medium and, or like a really, or a person who channels, you are becoming the vessel for that process, and it can really drain you to do that. And so now with Neptune here, it's kind of almost demanding that that's what's happening for whatever reason. We're all the swell of energy in order for us to give of ourselves totally to whatever, again, you got to know where Pisces is and where Neptune is in your house to get an idea of what area of life. But the opposition with the moon and Virgo is, you learn to tame those vital energies first, right? And so while we're being drawn very, very powerfully into being like, okay, it's time now to just give of yourself, which again, with the sun coming into Pisces at the same time, this is where people are really going to give in or surrender. And it just depends on who or what they are giving themselves to. There is this piece of us over here that's also being challenged to, let's see. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. That's for sure. And what it is, it's a challenge to really, to tame our vital energies, right? In order to actually use them when the time is right. There's a certain amount of patience that's involved here, and a certain amount of it's patience, and also being, very meticulous, being organized about it, right? And taming those energies, right? Not allowing them to just romp around completely out of control. Like, this is kind of being a lion tamer. If Leo was the full moon, now we have to actually utilize our own emotional hygiene, astral hygiene, our emotional fortitude to tame what otherwise is really strongly being pulled into a situation where we're giving everything over to this situation. And I'm not suggesting this is good or bad in and of itself. I'm just telling you what it is, right? Give of one's own vital energy to substantiate one's conscious ideals, right? Or unconscious desires. It goes both ways. And so again, this is where people really get stuck. Not even stuck. This is where they give themselves over to their addictions, to their escapism, to psychosis, to an illness, right? All those things as well. They give up and give to substantiate something. And if it's not conscious, then you really don't. How are you really going to tame your vital energies if you're not even aware what you're consciously or what you're unconsciously giving all of your energy to, right? So this is maybe this one little piece for people that'll be like, hey, right? Don't give it all away, find the fulcrum. And so in a T-square, it's the point that helps you find the fulcrum. These points are both square to Black Moon Lilith, right? Which is not even an object. It's just a position. It's just the void. It's something we know is there. It's a position. It exists, but it is not physical. It is something deeper than just us and our own mystery, right? Which is the moon. It's there, it's measurable, but it's not something that we can actually touch or, identify as a material essence. But this is deep, right? This is the original blueprint, the planetary blueprint we're all part of. We all come from the same ancestor, basically, whoever that is, right? And this is what Lilith represents. And there is a primal self-preservation component that's coming out of here that has a lot to do with our own minds, right? Gemini are the ideas that we're working with. And so at the very least, while we are feeling like we got to tame these energies, rather than getting pulled into, right? And we don't want to not give something to our conscious ideal either, right? We don't want to get so hyper fixated of like, I have to hold and tame all of this, that we don't actually allow ourselves to surrender to this divine unfolding, right? And give of ourselves. So this has something to do with creative idea integration, right? It's like three little birds, right? The three, so there's a trinity, there is balance, just like this T-square that really actually looks like a triangle. It's three little birds. They're high up in a tree, but they're together, right? And they are like fledglings. So there are ideas that still are young and are growing, and we're just now starting to integrate them, and they need to be protected. And they do that by staying up off of the ground and high in the tree, right? And so even though that doesn't, this is all mutable energy, by the way, Pisces, Virgo, and Gemini, mutable, right? Malleable, flexible. They have some fluidity to it, especially Pisces, but even Gemini, right? There's no end to the mental realm. There's no end to the use of consciousness, basically. And so there is something very deep that we will feel very, I think that there will be a strong urge to protect something new, something that is still developing. And it's going to pull on both of these areas because they require something a lot more focused and a lot more disciplined, and certainly a lot more of everything with Neptune. And this is just something that is still developing. And we're just now starting to integrate them into something new, right? And it's going to need some protection and need some focus. And it's connecting to something so much deeper than what is happening right now, which will give, I think, the ability to keep ourselves patient emotionally, but also not, keep us from giving of ourselves, in this transcendental, in this spiritual journey. So this is really interesting, because what we're going to find right from here, which is even better, is that as we go forward through today, we're going to see there's the kite. It's bold as all can be. And if they would draw the aspect lines between the nodes, you'd see the spine of the kite. So that's the opposition that holds the shape, which is our Pleiadian karmic soul's journey. Okay. So that is keeping all of this together. So what is this trine? Well, it is actually, you see that there's an earth trine just with the north node with Pluto and the moon in Virgo. And this is a very stabilizing, and also allows for us to fly, right? Allows for us to fly, to catch the wind, to go to much higher heights. And it's also it's very experiential. It has a lot to do with the physical properties, right? Because this is Earth. It's an Earth trine, a grand Earth trine with Taurus, with Pluto, and the Moon in Virgo. So we talked a lot about where Pluto is, right? And we've talked about where the North Node is. It's now 26 to 27 degrees Taurus, still in conjunction with the Pleiades, and in particular is in conjunction with fixed star Algol, which is the head of Medusa, right? So we really are like in a direction, going in a direction at a soul level to embrace or to learn from what it means to, adapt or to give of oneself for, knowing what the process naturally is. And it's very dramatic when we think about Algol and the head of Medusa, right? Because of everything that has happened with her and led her to be who she is, right? So it's very dramatic, and Pluto's involved too, so it's really supporting that. It's just like, this is all part of the demolition. If we don't destroy the things that are, ready to be destroyed or that are having a toxic effect, then we can't really expect new things to grow. And Venus and Mars are coming through, whether you like it or not. They are coming through, and they are sowing seeds. They're sowing seeds in the ground that has become fertile as a result of Pluto's destructive tendencies in this area, right? Just mulching everything and putting it into the soil, and they're coming along. So it's already happening. There's no stopping that either. It's this moon in Virgo that, our own personal, our own internalized willpower is going to kick in this moment. And it's then with the sextile from Pluto to the south node, from the moon to the south node. This is the top, this is the point, and it's really the tension of the nodes themselves of where we're coming from, which is Scorpio, and that has the investigation, getting to the bottom of things, the incredible power of our communal relationships, and the darkness, the shadow, power dynamics, and secrets, right? Secrets, because it's not it's relegated to the shadow, dark corners, right? But it also is what holds us together. It's the urge for more, to gather more, to create more, to produce more. That is also Scorpio. And so it also is very, very simply represents our current economy on this planet, right? Is that it's just a big spell. It's just a big spell based on faith, right? Faith. And so, but there's nothing wrong with faith, and having it at the pinnacle of this kite, and showing us where we've been, right? And what we've mastered and where we're going, which is you still have to have a natural type of faith in just nature, right? In the world around you, not necessarily in the other people in your life, which is much more about Scorpio, but just what is. And this is also, this is the bottom of the kite, and it's the tension between the two that's really providing the structure or the spine, which has a lot to do, like I said, with giving of ourselves, peaceful adaptation, or the amount of excitement that develops when we really have some sort of representation of all of these cultural values that have grown as the result of our communal action together, right? This is very much part of late Scorpio. So, and remember, these are very close still to the full moon lunar eclipse that was in November. So this is where I think we'll each feel it the most, right? Which is some aspect of our willpower is going to have to step in emotionally and just take control of us in a time of crisis, or a time. And when you have Pluto and the North Node like this, definitely, especially with the South Node too, this kite, just be aware by the end of the day, even there'll be representations or some sort of very material, very physical, nuts and bolts type of expression of Pluto and the North Node together. Just off with the head, right? Off with the head. Because that's our future. That is where we're going. And in fact, Pluto is like, yes, this is how you transform not only as a society, but as a country. And you keep it together. Keep it together. That's what I keep getting over and over. Keep it together. But look at this. We can soar. We can fly. There is this earth trine that keeps us on this planet and in our bodies, in embodiment, right? That's very important as well. So let's see. I think that's the big news for Friday, right? And then the moon comes into Libra. So we'll go back over here real quick, and I can show you that the moon is going to then move into Libra and right away have a quincunx with the sun. So we always want to pay attention to the quincunx between the moon and the sun, because you're talking about the luminaries that represent each of us. So they are definitely going to, what we want to pay attention to the relationship with them all the way through the cycle, right? And so it's a moment of adjustment, a moment of the square peg in the round hole, because 0 degrees of Libra is, on the cross, right? It's a perfect representation of balanced form. It is the scales themselves, but it has a distinctly organic or life component to it, because it is an individual being that is splayed into this configuration. So that is a big part of, again, we've talked about this in the forecast because of where this new moon is coming. This is much more, it's the symbol of the cross, right? And in the Sabian symbols, the 0 degrees to 1 degrees Libra is a butterfly that is in some sort of, that's on display, right? And it has a dart through the middle of its body, and it's its wings are splayed out, and it's part of a collection. But what it represents is the archetype of perfect form. And remember, Libra's an air sign. We're applying our knowledge of ourselves, which we learn in Virgo, to the social order, to the social relationship, whatever it is. So this quincunx right away, coming into tomorrow, right? This is tonight into tomorrow. This is a very mental and intellectual rendering of our own feeling of like, oh, this is what it's like. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is what it's supposed to feel like, right? It's what it's supposed to feel like because we're talking about the moon, right? But what it actually feels like with the sun in Pisces is a totally different story, because we are identifying not with some sort of perfect form in and of itself, but we are just completely going to the market, right? We are giving ourselves and identifying with the community as a functioning whole and everything that goes along with it. So the first degree of Pisces is the farmer's market, right? Everybody's there. All of the vendors are there. Everybody shows up with everything they've produced, right? And it's one thing to, harvest, right? Because that's essentially what you're doing at the beginning of Libra, which is the autumn equinox, or the September equinox is Libra, 0 degrees Libra. But you also, it's one thing to harvest and to have, the ideal form of that. It's another to take it to the market and to everybody to interact and to buy things and to trade things and to see the health of the whole community from a spiritual perspective. This is where it's going to get interesting as we come into Saturday. I really feel like Saturday is going to be not only, people are already going to start giving up, and Saturday is going to be very frustrating because we will be so drawn to be like, what can we do to find the perfect form in our relationships or relationship to society? And they're very well, I really hesitate to make this forecast, but the symbolism is so obvious that I would not be surprised. We might find some actual news of arrest on Saturday, possibly. Like I said, I hate to forecast these things, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's really setting it up for that. So we come into Saturday, and the first thing that we really do, we move through, where are we at here? First, we have Mercury here in Aquarius now, and is still in its retrograde shadow until the 24th. So the moon will square the sun on the 24th. We talked about this a lot in the forecast, and Mercury will move out of its retrograde shadow and move into new mental territory. So just consider that we're still mentally working with ideas and concepts and mentally connected to the social environment as a whole, in a way that we've been before and not too long ago. And we've had a lot of opportunities to go back over it and come back over it again. So there is this trine here with the moon in Libra at this point of 4 to 5 degrees of Libra, where, let's see here. This is about transmission, and this is going to be about mental or emotional transmission, subconscious transmission, right? Some sort of inner knowledge being revealed to us through our dreams, through our subconscious. If you're into, if you're able to get into a state in meditation, it's something you're just going to feel. But it is an air trine that is connected to Mercury in an air sign. So it's going to be very conceptual and very mental and very intellectual, and also very much like laser focus, like full zip files of ancestral information coming in, but it'll be experienced in our feels, right? It'll be experienced in our feels when we receive the transmission. We're going to receive the transmission, and it will be knowledge, but keep in mind, it's going to come through a channel that is going to be more feeling oriented with the moon, as opposed to like a direct mental download. It'll be knowledge. It'll be connection to the social environment. And, we're still in this lunar cycle that started with a new moon that had us setting intentions around being a fine-tuned instrument, calibrating an instrument in a way that will not only store the energy of the world that we're part of, but be able to measure and anticipate changes when we are able to measure changes in the system, right? And so that is already that is something that we're still working with. And Mercury in Aquarius like this, still moving towards that new moon point. I mean, now we're about to receive, right? And like I said, it's going to be in the feels. It's going to be through the feelings of relationships or a relationship to the social order. And it will be very conceptual knowledge, but it'll come through the feels, absolutely. In some way, maybe an expression, maybe like an emotional expression. But again, it'll be coming right from some sort of ancestral council that is setting the precedent in some ways for the transmission that is all going to be received, right? And so it's right after this that the moon comes into an opposition with Chiron and then comes into that YOD. So Saturday is really, there's just a lot happening on Saturday in particular. So you see the YOD, right? The two quincunxes between 2 points of sextile. That's the finger of God or YOD. And then there's an opposition right down the middle with Chiron. Okay, so let's unpack this because this is, we're going to receive a transmission. We're going to have a real hard time expressing it time. And this is, I talked about it with Aries and Libra in particular, because they're going to feel it the most like right in their actual relationships, one-on-one relationships, or how they feel in any of their relationships. But it's going to be the difference between receiving this incredible amount of information or this transmission and being able to then somehow translate it back out to be able to communicate it or instruct other people. And there'll be a bottleneck in some way. There will be a bottleneck, right? There'll be a bottleneck that will kind of, and it's going to be the bottleneck that will force us into transmuting something here with Jupiter and Uranus, because this YOD, right? It's towards here. We want to be able to communicate or to emotionally connect to people that we're in relationship with, and we will really have a lot to share. I think we will have a lot to share emotionally, but I think that there's going to be a lot of frustration and not being able to reach people. I think that's going to be a really difficult position to be in as well. So this opposition, and this is where it starts with the opposition to Chiron, right? And while we are really dealing with how do we manage this bottleneck, what is pulling us back is, so there's going to be a clapback in two different ways that's going to have people be completely passive, even more passive, and they won't necessarily maintain their integrity and virtue within their own their own healthy ego, and as a result of being triggered in some way by this frustration. Or it'll be the other way around, especially for Aries people. It'll be the other way around, or maybe even all the fire signs, but definitely Aries, where the Aries person has the potential to really snap back and get even more kind of like Aries about it when they can't figure out how to, stretch this bottleneck in order to transmit the information that they've received to others in their life or to society at large. The Aries person is more likely, I think, to snap back and be even more ego-oriented, more impulsive, and be triggered more, but it's going to go both ways. So this YOD, again, is going to be where we have to extract ourselves. We cannot stay down in the mind forever. We will become asphyxiated, and we have to come back out and live normal life. And that is going to be very difficult for where these two quincunxes are happening, right? Because there's no normal life with Jupiter 12 degrees of Pisces. You are entering the spiritual brotherhood at this point. You're going through your initiation. You are being tested to see if you qualify for the mystery school. These are just examples, right? Or God or you're being tested by, I wouldn't say God. I don't think God ever tests people. I think we test ourselves, and God just is. But life, maybe, perhaps there is some sort of change in fortune. That happens a lot with Jupiter too, right? Because it's just, it's just expanding. And so sometimes you have access to resources or perspectives that you didn't have before, right? So Jupiter really does have a lot to do with like luck and fortune and representation. But so there's nothing there's nothing normal about that. And then Uranus, there's never normality to Uranus ever. So you can see already how just the nature of these planets, regardless of the signs they're in, are already kind of like, it's so big with Jupiter, and it's so like, crazy with Uranus. And then to have the moon in Libra, that's just so like, I just want everybody to be happy. This is an incredibly powerful moment. And I think that what we're going to find is that we will have to take ourselves out of the mine. And that's the image that, those were children that worked in the coal mines of Pennsylvania. But it's the idea that there are people who take the initiative to go down and to extract, and that's important. But you have to extract it and bring it back. You can't stay down there. And I think that this is going to be one of those tipping points for a lot of people. And a YOD is definitely the finger of God, right? The finger of God is pointing you, especially Jupiter and Uranus involved, pointing you towards this dynamic within yourself. You have to find a way to balance the very deep rabbit hole with coming back and finding some air within yourself. And what happens here with this opposition with the moon and Chiron right before this is exact, is going to have a big impact on whether or not you come up for air, whether or not you or stay down in the mine out of stubbornness or out of being trapped. That could also happen as well. But it's important that even if you've been the person that has, and many of us are, right? We've gone, and this, you're looking at, you're starting to get into, especially around, anyway, never mind. I'm trying to keep this not on too many tangents. So this is the point here. This is the YOD and the finger of God. And like, you're going to have to come up for air. Otherwise, you're just going to suffocate if you stay down there, right? You have to somehow come back up and be part of life and live a natural life. What was the point of going down there and extracting all of these resources if you're not going to use them? Going to be a difficult weekend. I'm sorry to report that. But there's always possibility for growth and learning and grace in these situations. Okay, and that's another thing about the sun in Pisces. Grace, right? I mean, that's the thing when you give yourself over and you let go of trying to control any of this space. There's grace here. There's forgiveness. But there's going to be exits. There just will be. It's going to be difficult. And let's see here. Where are we at? Yes, we are still here on Saturday. So what we're going to do is come into Sunday, and this is where the possibility of an arrest, maybe. We'll see. So what I will say, though, is that the moon in Libra is going to be in a trine to Saturn. So first of all, Libra does have a very strong Saturnian quality and vice versa, right? Because it is Libra that represents the social contract of our legal system. Just for instance, let's think about the scales of justice are represented by Libra. This is the social contract. And this can be expressed in a number of different ways in your seventh house, for instance, your marriage, your business partnerships, the social contract with just being a citizen of a place with a legal system and a justice system, and just social contract, just being part of society. So there is a Saturnian quality because Saturn's the judge. Saturn is the letter of the law. Saturn is the time clock, the metronome, okay? So this particular degree of Libra, quite simply, symbolically, is two people under arrest, okay? Now, you can take that literal if you want, especially because Saturn at 18 degrees of Aquarius is, public motives, private motives being publicly unmasked, all right? And we've talked a lot about Saturn in this position because it's been here for a little while and is unyielding when it comes to what Saturn represents. Nothing can stop what is coming, right? I mean, that is Saturn. That is Saturn. Saturn represents the cycle of growth and maturity and adulthood. And Saturn also represents the time clock, right? There's no stopping that either, right? Natural law is binding, regardless of what we think about it. So this trine, so you can take it literally, it's very possible, but you also have to consider that this particular aspect of Libra, right? We talked about this already, that there is a form. And if there are elements in that form that can't be transfigured, they can't be implemented, if there is something so, the expectable result when an individual and society and their relationship breaks down. And so there has to be a mechanism to pull those undesirable elements out of the system in order for it to find balance, which is what a legal system is, right? So we may find our feelings around this, whether that be in our personal lives, in our own internal journey, or something that we are, adapting to or having a connection, emotional or empathic connection to something outside of us, it is going to highlight what aspects are just not able to be integrated and have to be removed. They have to be removed in order for society to find that balance again, right? So this is a very personal experience with the moon and very fleeting. The trine, right, the mental stability in this, very harmonious foundational support is the fact that Saturn is unyielding in its position of in the social environment, in the ecosystem. Nothing is hidden. It's impossible. It's impossible when it's all connected. And this is the idea of it. This is the knowing of it with Aquarius. You live it when you're in Pisces. And that's why also very difficult weekend. So again, first thing Sunday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're looking at this trine. So I wouldn't be surprised. Although I'm not going to tell you it's going to happen. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised. But what will likely happen is some type of very personalized and emotional experience of this that is, in fact, completely anchored by Saturn in a trine to this reality that there is no hiding. All will be revealed when all is connected to each other. You have secrets in Scorpio. And remember, that's where the South Node is. We are moving away from that dynamic now. So, very interesting. And then what's going to happen from here is that you see that Mars and Venus still traveling essentially together in the same whole degree. They are, the moon's going to then square both of those at 19 to 20 degrees of Libra and Capricorn. And we are... everybody's playing their part. Everybody is maximizing their creative potential in some sort of harmonious expression, right? But it's hidden. It's the performance of the individual in this position in Capricorn as you're coming into the last decan of Capricorn is not the individuals themselves or even what they're doing, but they're coming together, they're harmonizing with each other that allows for a larger collective experience, right? And so you go into the church and there's a choir, but they're hidden, right? Behind the pulpit, there's somewhere else that you don't see. So they're just providing this experience. And the experience is for the entire congregation to have also a connection to the resonance that choir is providing. So there's this this sense of, again, coming through and planting the seeds, sowing the seeds of this. And the square to the moon in Libra, right? This is cardinal energy. So there's movement, right? There's momentum. There's momentum here to cultivate this, and there's momentum within ourselves to utilize some sort of system that we've inherited in order to inspire other people and to teach them, right? Remember, Libra is about applied knowledge, right? The application of our knowledge. So when even in a moon, with the moon there, even with that happening, we also are we're still looking to find that balance within ourselves by drawing on the power of something that's already been established, some sort of ancestral tradition, to serve other people, right? Whereas Venus and Mars are they are representing very incarnate energies of masculine and feminine that are together, and they are, like I said, they are traveling together, they are sowing seeds together and fertilizing them everywhere in the wake of Pluto at this point, that has much more like an agenda that isn't about our personal relationship necessarily with anyone else, but everybody playing their role for something much bigger. So that's gonna be very challenging too. Like I said, it's gonna be a rough weekend. Because we're going to want to inspire, serve other people, give them the knowledge that we have actually learned and have been trying so much to be able to transmit to others in our relationships that we care about. But this is very strong, and this is like two magnets coming together. It's very difficult to not only pull them apart, but in Capricorn, it's so much more embedded in the actual institutional framework, that this could we feel helpless, I think, even though we have all of this knowledge that we can like very masterfully in some ways impart on others. I just get the sense here that these two are the power of their attraction together and what they are initiating is way strong, and we're going to feel that. So again, if you're feeling, frustrated, helpless, like you can't get it balanced out within yourself or in your feelings or relationships, just know that there's tons of things here that are bringing this out over the whole weekend. And then when the moon is coming out, coming into her last decan of Libra, she's going to have a quincunx with Neptune, quincunx eventually with the, you can see here with the nodes, right? The quincunx with the north node, a semi-sextile, right? 30 degrees with the south node. And again, the north node at Algol is about releasing something like an adaptation, a natural adaptation, based on the essence of the material world, right? And in the case of Medusa, right, that her sacrifice and her adaptation by Perseus cutting her head off essentially was something that allowed for a much larger battle to be fought and won, right? And so again, there are things about that we value. There are things that have to do with our value and worth and the world around us that makes up, what we do value, whether they be relationships or anything physical or material in our life, even our own bodies. We are being drawn to a place that is having us really evaluate what is actually valuable at that level. And that means giving up the things that, this is kind of like Chiron in some ways, giving up that toxic identity that we've been holding on to for so long. And I would argue that that is like this really militaristic, aggressive perspective over here with the South Node. So I have a sense that by the time we get to Sunday night, we're going to just be so overwhelmed that we are like, you know what? I just want to be like up in the sky. Like, I don't even want to deal with what's happening down here. And this is Arcturus, by the way. Like, well, 24 degrees is Arcturus. So we're in Arcturian starseed, in a quincunx with the Pleiadian nature, right? I mean, the tendency here is to tap into that very ancient wisdom of how it all works together in order to transcend the lived experience of these crises, but we're still being pulled into the lived experience of these crises. So it's, again, every step of the way, as we try so desperately to get ourselves balanced and our relationships balanced, it's going to be like, no. Not that that isn't a possibility. It's just that in terms of our mind and knowledge, it's going to be a lot more difficult than maybe we think. So the last thing I want to bring up about this weekend, and then we can move on. And I'm coming over here to just look at the chat because, Emily, what did you say? People will give up because of the belief it's becoming too difficult, but we know it's an illusion and the fire won't burn us. It will show us the way. Boom. Boom. You're totally right. You're totally right. I agree. But that doesn't mean that their giving up isn't part of their karma either. And that's going to be very, very difficult to accept. And it has been for the last 2 years. Anybody that's lost any people in their lives as a result of illness, as a result of suicide, as a result of overdose, as a result of abuse or some other, all kinds of things that seem unfair. And they are, right? They've been initiated for that purpose, but you don't know what people's karmic contracts are. And I think that that's so painful. And I can say that that's certainly how I was feeling when I woke myself up sobbing today, because I was like, wow, it's going to be really hard. The one last thing I want to bring up, and then we can go on with our day, is, and I appreciate everybody being here, is not only do we, okay, here's that kite, which is really awesome, but we're going to look at, we're going to look at something that actually may help us in this process that is going to potentially be very difficult. And you may find that this weekend just blows by and you're like, right? It can happen, right? Because, you're already like accepted that you're going down the other side of this roller coaster hill and you're like, yeah, let's go. And the person next to you is just like freaking the fuck out and there's nothing you can do for them. There's nothing you can do for them other than hold their hand and be like, yeah, this is awesome, isn't it? And they're like, oh my God. I have a story about that. I don't want to embarrass the person, so I won't tell you who they are. But there's this, and this is related, right? This astrology that I'm going to show you is actually related to this situation. Hold on, let me make sure that it's queued up first before I launch into this story, because that's really what I do. I just tell these stories. Hold on one second. I promise. Okay. And where is the moon? Okay, because this is going to be right around the time that the moon is in that trine to Saturn, right? Where the two people under arrest, right? The expectable condition of the relationship when it breaks down between one party and another and what has to happen, right? And it's in trine to Saturn. Okay, I keep going over it because it's so important to just be aware of. But then we have the sun. This is what I wanted to show you. The sun is in a trine to Black Moon Lilith in Cancer. And this is really important because this is going to come back up again with the new moon in the very beginning of March in different positions, okay? So they're going to be kind of traveling together through these water signs, Black Moon Lilith in Cancer and then the sun in Pisces. And actually at the new moon, as you may have already figured out if you watched your forecast, at the new moon, Black Moon Lilith will be in conjunction with Sirius and trine to the new moon. So, I mean, it's got Syrian starseed signature all over the March new moon. That's what I mean. Like the dynamic is about to change. And we'll do a lot of, that'll be a perfect time to do a meetup for starseeds because the Syrian starseed nature really needs to be, I think, investigated a little bit more by all of us, not other people besides myself. Even me, I want to be able to do this too. So, because I have very strong Syrian in my chart. So here is this trine, this water trine. It's important to realize that when you surrender yourself, that you have abdicated, right? You have given over your own authority in terms of what the whole is going to what the whole is going to do with you. And so the second degree of Pisces represents that there is a need for caution sometimes. Not everything in the environment is for your greatest good in terms of your material existence, right? So the squirrel is hiding from the hunters, right? The squirrel's hiding and exercising caution because there's somebody out there hunting the squirrel for food, right? And the squirrel is looking for its own food, and so it needs to hide. It needs to wrap itself up in or hide in a tree, right? Go burrow somewhere and stay out of sight. So That's part of giving yourself over. That is a successful way of identifying with the woo, so to speak, is you understand that when you do that, just like when Jesus did that, he didn't think, oh, I'm going to make a ton of money and I'm going to have a comfortable life because I've told everybody the truth of what is. No, they straight up murdered him, right? That's the idea. That's the martyrdom of Pisces. So successful navigators in this space, not to say that Jesus wasn't, that was his role, was to be the ultimate martyr. But I'm talking about, mystics. I'm talking about us. I'm talking about the energy workers, the starseeds. I'm talking about the empaths, right? The dreamers, the artists, all of these Piscean healers, right? All of these Piscean types of roles that when you embark on this space and you give yourself over, there is a necessity to successfully make it through, to protect yourself or to hide or to just accept that everybody's role and with their how it's all fitting together might not always be in your personal self-interest. Where we are going to find a means to protect ourselves or to find that type of, to exercise that caution and to actually shield ourselves or hide ourselves or just to not be obvious in this, it's just like, here, take me, right? That's not what the squirrel's doing. The squirrel is like, oh shit, I'm going to go hide until they pass by. Black Moon Lilith at 2 degrees of Cancer, this is like being on a magic carpet hovering above everything, right? Realizing that for as stable as the Cancer archetype allows for you to be with a root system, there is also the spirit that, let's just read the Sabian symbol, shall we? Because I have it right here. Let me find it. Oh gosh, here it is. So a man on a magic carpet hovers over a large area. And I used to change I used to make it gender neutral when I'd write these and read these, but I discovered that the use of a gender in these Sabian symbols is intentional, right? Because it's not always a man. It's, sometimes they are, it's a woman in the Sabian symbol. And it's because it's representing that particular energetic identity, right? That part of the spectrum is the masculine. So think about it that way. So when I say a man, think about the masculine part of ourselves, the masculine aspect in general. A man on a magic carpet hovers over a large area of land. And it represents the ability to expand one's consciousness by stabilizing one's point of view at a higher level, right? We can get really pulled into the traditions, the customs, the expectation of our family. This is really important. The expectation of our family, our spiritual community, our nation, right? Whatever that fourth house represents, or Cancer to you, whatever is that containment system that holds you and allows you to be emotionally stable. The plant doesn't just grow roots. It will eventually grow up, right? And this is it's the contrast to Cancer, 0 degrees Cancer, where we make a decision and plant our flag. Well, this is the contrast. That part of that is that you stabilize your point of view at a level that is like, this is where I'm going. Right? That's the plant. The plant is putting roots in the ground during Cancer time and is also having incredible vegetative growth because it's not like it realizes it. It's just doing it. This is where I'm going. You stabilize yourself up here as well. And by accepting this focus, your mind can be risen. You can raise your mind to a point of observation and have a much different perspective. So again, Black Moon Lilith, it's a space. It's something that is infinite, but very much a part of who we are, a blueprint that is original to us. It is going to allow us to stabilize our point of view at a much higher level as we maybe identify ourselves with a not very safe place emotionally, okay? And that's part of this journey. So, anyway, so that's, I'm going to look at the chat here in a second and we're going to close out. So I'm going to, yeah, I'm just going to close out. So how are people doing? I'm coming over. We got some bots, of course. And it begins. I just watched a trucker in Canada get arrested live on the YouTube, and we'll get through this. He wasn't doing anything either. Dominoes. It appears people aren't going to be happy for a few days. It's thick like fog for sure. Yeah, you're right on. And I wish it could be. I really do wish that I could give a different read, and I've done so many different ways to give us opportunity to get the most out of the situation. But it's only at the precipice, right? We know this. Only at the precipice of disaster will people find the will to change. And there will be people that won't find the will to change in the way that we personally and emotionally want them to, but they may change in different ways. And just be prepared on some level and keep your heart strong and open, because that's the best way to be present and empathic for yourself and other people without becoming, part of their experience, right? And that's going to be very strong with the sun now in Pisces, that we are identifying ourselves with the full experience. And there's nothing wrong necessarily with that, but we have to realize that there are a lot of people on this planet, and there's a lot of difficult challenges and a lot of very painful real life experiences that are going to affect all of us. And so I just feel like this weekend is really going to bring all of that to at least some sort of head. And it's going to be at the third quarter moon where we really are tested. I think that's my read on it, right? Those quarter moons are a pain in the ass. The full moon is just like, hey, I see it fully when I don't normally see it this fully in my consciousness. It's going to be the third quarter that we're like, okay, I'm going to apply this now, and we're not getting the full emotional picture. And I think that we may find it'll be a real crisis point by the middle of next week. So I'm going to leave it there, my friends. So have a great weekend, everyone. I know it's going to be difficult. Please reach out if you need support. Telegram, we have a great chat function, and people are very active with each other. Also, you can always reach out through email to me. It's in the description box below. If you're interested in a reading, if you're interested in energy work to support your process, sometimes you just need, to have that space without trying to necessarily solve a problem, but to just have an energetic tune-up, right, can really help. And even just Reiki is so nourishing and so compassionate, right? It is the highest vibe of energy you're going to get when you channel Reiki, that it can really just help, right? It can just really help balance you out and allow you to feel a sense of love and being held. And it goes where it needs to go, right? And so there's never a bad situation with Reiki. It may not do what you want it to do, but your higher self is totally involved. So anyway, guys, I love you. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you want to subscribe on Subscribestar, you can do that. The link at the description box below, or you can get more information at the end of this video if you're interested. But the forecasts are going to be moving to the subscriber-only platform starting with the new moon. So if you really value those, you can, invest in that for $3 a month and have access to those bi-monthly forecasts that are very detailed, right? I mean, that's a half hour for each sign. That's a lot. That's a lot of astrology. But what I found is that, it just makes it a lot easier when you can get into a little bit more of the detail and explain how to read these things instead of just popping off sound bites to you, so you don't have to actually think about it yourself, right? So anyway, I love you guys. Have a great weekend. I hope everyone is doing well. Please reach out for support if you need it. And let's stay in touch on Telegram. And in the meantime, I'm going to let you go. So love you guys. Peace out.